Sometimes when you're driving down the road all by yourself, you begin to hear a voice that tells you need to look around, pay attention. Maybe something isn't quite right. That voice is me. It's the voice of Gord. G'day and welcome to Voice of Gord. On today's episode, we've got a real special guest for you, Mr. Will Cook, the man behind an advocacy organization called America Without Drivers. Mr. Cook is himself a trucker, lives in Indiana, and has been very busy with America Without Drivers. He's been organizing politically and trying to get politicians and the public to ask more questions about autonomous truck manufacturers and the pimps who are trying to push them on us. This was a pretty lengthy conversation. We went for over an hour and a half, and we went all over the place. The history of his organization, his life on the road as a trucker, considerations to be had in discussing autonomous trucks that you might not hear from the manufacturers or those in the media who've been speaking about them ad nauseum as of late. This is a really, really good conversation, and I'm so happy to get it out to you guys. Again, if you're listening to this and you are not a trucker and you know one, send it to them, please. Any and all feedback can come to me directly, gordylocks@protonmail.com. Thanks very much, and on to the show. All right, hey everybody. Welcome to another edition of Voice of Gord. That's me. I'm Gord, and I'm very, very honored today to have as a guest the wonderful Mr. Will Cook, who is the main guy behind an organization called America Without Drivers. Mr. Cook is a truck driver and is doing some work to try and educate the public and educate politicians on what's going to happen if the tech companies get their way and try and automate the rest of us out of existence. G'day, Will.
Hey, hello.
All right, thanks for joining us,
So,
man. Where are you tonight? Let us all know. Where are you calling in from?
I am actually up in Janesville, Wisconsin. I brought my son up here. He's sophomore in college. He is auditioning for the Madison Scouts up here. That's a big band thing that travels around the country, and they compete, and it's like the adult band that when after for college and so forth. So he's up here auditioning for drum major. Uh, So I brought him up here. He was tired. He had to stay up late, and he couldn't be driving all the way up and then driving all the way back with all the schoolwork and responsibilities he has there. So I chauffeured him up here, and I'm hanging out in the motel while he's doing his audition thing. That's what dads do, right?
That's right. Well, that's what truck drivers do. The chauffeuring never ends. We're either
Right.
delivering a load or we're delivering people. We're always delivering
People.
somebody. We're,
Something, yeah.
we're
Yep.
always
I
delivering
already got
someone.
I already got propositioned to help out, move their trailer around and stuff. As soon as they found out I was a truck driver, it's like, oh yeah, well yep, you know how it goes.
Yeah. So you're in Wisconsin. Where are you originally from, Will?
Indiana, Central Indiana,
Right.
born
Uh,
born and brewed Hoosier.
Born and bred Hoosier. And you've been a trucker for how long now?
32 years.
Did you say 32?
Yes, sir.
Oh, wow. That's
Started in the National Guards as 58 transportation, 88 Mike, which is truck driver, and come out and started driving civilian in 90 for Coretta out of Paramus, New Jersey. They had a hub in Chicago Heights, which was just 2.5 hours northwest of me there up to Chicago, and so I was able to that's where I started with was Coretta Trucking out of Paramus, New Jersey, coast
oh
to
wow.
coast, Cab over Pete, double wide bunk.
Oh
Good old
wow.
days.
Yeah, I learned how to drive on a Ford L9000. And then my first highway tractor when like I did short like I sort of did the graduated licensing system, but somewhat informally. I got my license when I was 18 and I was like running around Hamilton, Ontario. And I would just do, Hamilton, London, Toronto, local work. And then as I got better at it, it would send me a little further away. And I started to go to Montreal and Detroit. And that was in a cab over Kenworth. So
Nice. Yep.
cab over respecters represent. I'm sure
Yeah.
there's a few of those folks out in the audience.
Yep.
Bring them back, bring back the cab overs.
Those Freightliner, what were they? Odysseys or something like that. Those seemed
Argosy.
pretty cool. Argosies, yeah, they looked comfortable, man. They didn't have the doghouse in them or anything. Those looked like they'd be pretty cool to drive.
Yeah, my buddy Scotty Tofin drove one for a while, and my friend Justin, aka Mr. Super Trucker, over at Back the Truck Up, he drove an Argosy for a while. I don't think he was a huge fan.
Okay. All right. So,
But
anyways, I I've been out here for a good while. I drove for Syndicate Sales, their private fleet, Hurry and Hoosiers. They had a really old MC number, um, and the ELD come out, and I was running to and from California. I'm just going to tell you how I kind of got started into this because all the way up until just about 4 or 5 years ago, I really didn't do anything in trucking. I volunteered a lot in my community, in the church, and in the community, fire department, so forth like that. But I really didn't do anything in trucking except for drive, make a living, and go home and park it. Right. My dad and I had a truck when 9/11 happened, and about a year after that, we took it to the Fort Wayne auction. And I went and drove a company truck and drove all the way up company until about 5 years ago. But anyways, the ELDs come out, and I knew it was going to affect my run because I drove from Indiana out to California, Northern Cal, and I left every other Thursday hauling flower vases. The place that I worked, they had the patent on the glass on the vases, but they would make all the plastics themselves. So every other Thursday, I'd leave out and go out there and do 6 to 10 drops and come back, and I'd get 3 or 4 days off depending on how we done it. Well, back before ELDs, you could make things happen on your books and get a little bit more time at home. And one of the things I just want to say real quick with the ELDs is, we could stop outside of a major city and not go in, and then get up in the morning and yeah, everybody wants to say, yeah, you were cheating the logbook, you were lying, you were doing it. Well, yeah, we were making it what worked for us. Okay. So let's say it however you want to, take it out of context, but you could get up in the morning where now we can't. We have to go on to the shipper, or else we got to start that clock first thing in the morning. And if you want to beat traffic in, you're going to get up at 4 o'clock. You're going to get in there before traffic, and you may lay back down for another hour or so before the customer come in. But you
yeah,
beat traffic
you end up wasting all kinds of time. Yeah,
all kinds of time.
yeah, the problem with the ELDs is it's a sledgehammer trying to attack a nail, and it removes any agency that you have as a professional to manage and make your own schedule. And it also interferes with you being able to schedule your home time. It interferes with you being able to figure out when you want to leave. The whole thing is it's what they call a cluster. All
Yeah,
right.
Gordon, it don't make no sense. I mean, I've been out here that 30 some years, over 4 million safe miles. I got a master driving award by the ATA. The ATA hates me because I'm an advocate, and they gave me one of the highest awards they give out. You know what I mean? But here I am going against them, and but yet, I'm not adult enough to know when I'm tired and what I need to do to make things as safe as possible for me and
Yeah,
the others around me.
the infantilization of perfectly capable, rational, responsible adults is one of these effects of regulation that they don't take into consideration. They write these laws because they're trying to say they're correcting a problem, but in the correcting of it, they cast this very wide net, and you end up basically you're what they end up doing is castrating people I mean, for lack of a better term.
Yep.
And that turns
Yep.
folks off and then contributes to the driver retention problem because people end up quitting because they just don't want to be treated like children. And I don't think they give this enough consideration. I think it's hilarious though that you got an award from the ATA. Given this recent thing I wrote about them, that's probably going to make them hate me forever too.
Well, here's another thing, and then we move on. But let's, something I don't understand in my understanding, okay, is that when they need us, they will tell us, just like during COVID, you can drive however you need to drive, just be safe from point A to point B, however many hours, whatever it takes. But when you get to point B, we need you to take 10 hours off before you go do it again, if you're under an essential load, right?
Correct.
So we're adult enough to do it then, but as soon as they don't need us, they throw us back on. We're no longer adult enough to make those decisions because it's not an essential load.
Right. So I worked under that even before
Wait,
COVID.
real quick though.
Yeah.
So something that you can check into, I'd like to see you check into, is I would like to see the statistics, the data of how many accidents there were during COVID under these lifted mandates.
I have seen them. I have looked into it. And guess what? There was two in total. Two. And neither one of them was fatal. Neither one of them involved any property damage. And believe it or not, they were guys delivering propane. I can't remember. I think it was Landline did an article about this, that they asked the same question you just asked about the COVID waivers, the HOS waivers. And what I was about to say was that I have been issued these waivers because they do issue them like on a regional sort of emergency basis, like if there's really bad snow or there's a cold snap or there's a hurricane down south or something like that. The FMCSA and the DOT will issue these waivers, and I've worked under them. And I've worked in excess of normal HOS hours and nothing's ever happened. And I just carry on as normal. Like I know when I'm tired, I know when it's time to quit. I know what I'm capable of doing because I'm a professional and I'm an adult. And like you said, this statistic during the COVID HOS exemptions, exactly 2 trucks got into incidents. Nobody was hurt in either one. And they were both local delivery drivers. They weren't OTR guys. They were guys driving little bobtail propane delivery trucks. That's it. The only in the entire country, that's all they could scrape together was 2 minor incidents involving these propane trucks.
Well, there's proof in the pudding, ain't there?
Yeah. There is.
Yeah,
well,
let's not talk about that, right? Yeah, they don't want to talk about that though, do they?
Well, I mean, the thing is like, and I mentioned this elsewhere, is that they're all about the science and the statistics and what does this show, until the statistics and the science show that whatever regulation, whatever imposition that they're trying to push on you doesn't actually work and or exacerbates the problem it's trying to solve and makes it worse. Then all of a sudden, well, we're not interested in that statistic and that science, which tells you it's not about any of that. It's about control, right?
Yes, sir.
So,
America
but anyway,
without drivers.
Yes, America without drivers. So exactly. So before we get, hey, truck drivers are famous for wanting to complain and whine about our sovereignty and our agency as people
I'm
being
excited.
removed.
Is that what we're going to do?
But I mean, we could do that, but it would be very boring. But I want you to tell me and my audience all about what America without drivers is, how it started, how it's going, what you guys are doing, who you've spoken with. Like, download everything about AWOD to us right now.
All right. I wasn't really prepared. I didn't take notes. Do notes. Because I wasn't for sure what the questions were going to be. So you didn't give me the prior to
I have I
precursors.
have full confidence that you can do all of this on the fly, sir. Otherwise, it
All
wouldn't
right.
have
Well,
invited you.
there's a lot to it though, man. The heart of it. I don't want to mislead it. First of all, I didn't build America without drivers on my own. I did have the vision. I did take off and do it, but a lot of people have came through the organization, volunteered and helped, and kind of inspired and got us from one level to the next to the following level. Now, uh, so I owe a lot of thanks to a lot of other people who's volunteered in America Without Drivers. It actually started as a small group on Facebook as Boots on the Ground, and it was just us getting out, and that Black Smoke Matters group was going out there, and they were fighting. They were going to do a shutdown, and that was my first time ever getting my feet wet in any kind of trucking advocacy at all. I didn't know nobody or nothing about it. Okay, it was the ELDs were out. I was switching jobs. I'd went to Walmart. I'd seen some of the back scenes of Walmart, how big corp is operating, and I seen a future truck that they were investing into in a automated truck. And this has been back about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago now. So I was kind of curious, if Walmart was investing already, had already bought into and invested into a driverless truck, it must have been coming down the pike. So I started YouTubing and going down one rabbit trail to another. And I really started seeing that this stuff was on the forefront. It was coming. And then I found out that President Bush, let's go back.
Oh
A lot
wow,
of talk.
get in the
Yeah,
Wayback Machine.
so President Bush actually, during the war in the Middle East, because of the roadside bombs, he used that for an excuse of we needed some driverless vehicles over there so our boys weren't getting blown up in these with these roadside bombs. Great idea. Great. I support it 110%. Right. If it's going to save somebody's life, I'm for it. So, but what that did is he called over to Silicon Valley out there in California, and it opened it up. And there's white papers on this. This is all you can look it all up.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I have heard the connection to the Bush administration and the war in
yep,
Iraq before. That's not new to
yep,
me.
that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. And so, anyways, that opened up the Pandora box, is what it did. And now all the tech guys was like, yes, let's get it, and they're stomping out. Um, the driver shortage, I had known for a good while that there wasn't a driver. The only time there's a driver shortage is around Christmas time, the holidays, or if there's a natural, a hurricane or something like that that causes us to need some more trucks. Because trucking, I've been out here long enough to know, in the floral industry, I was there 11 and a half years, so forth, that, trucking does good. When the economy's doing good, and then it falls back down. And what these guys will do is right before Christmas, they'll hire on a bunch of drivers. And then after Christmas, a couple months before Christmas, they hire on their staff. After Christmas, they starve them out. All right. And then the guys start quitting and go someplace else.
Yeah.
Um, so America Without Drivers, after I helped out with that shutdown, I seen that boots on the ground being out there. It was like, man, you guys were just staying in our own circle. A lot of the things my eyes were open to, a lot of the regulations that's coming down. One of them was parking. Okay. Parking really opened up my eyes. And I was saying, they're not going to do anything with parking because they know that driverless is coming, and they don't know how close they are to really, putting it into effect. But why would they do parking and do the infrastructure? The other thing was they were wanting to get the infrastructure bill passed, and they couldn't get it passed. I said, but yet these guys know that driverless is coming, and they don't want to go out and put all this money into parking and then have to go out and redo it because we have driverless. Because if you get driverless out there on the main corridors, now you don't need as much parking. You get what
Right.
I'm
So
saying? It
they're
lifts
yeah,
the,
yeah, yeah. It was all
yeah.
timing. They're trying to see what was coming down the pipe before they budget all this money.
Yes, there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, and the politicians, I'm just a truck driver, just steering wheel holder. So I don't get to explain it as well as some of those well-spoken guys. So anyways, um, so I started catching on to this, and I started seeing where they were going. And a lot of the guys in our circle didn't like what I'd say. I said, you guys, we could be doing something about driverless. And I put a team together. We were studying driverless, and we started paying for white papers. Okay. And we started seeing the studies with labor, how back in the day, the labor department, they were already saying that truck drivers was one of the places where they were going to get involved in, and that there was money there to be made. How they were going to categorize truck drivers. Are they skilled trade, labor? I mean, there's white papers out there you can buy and you can see the studies on it.
Yeah, no,
So
it's very interesting you bring that up. If I might interrupt for a
go
moment.
for it.
So I've become I was suggested to speak with these guys called CDL Drivers Unlimited.
Yep.
Who have you heard of them?
Yep. I talked to him about a year ago before he even started up. He tried to get me to try to recruit me in there. Go ahead.
Right. So I had a recent discussion with the gentleman behind that, and one of their primary missions, so to speak, is to get the Department of Labor to list truck drivers as a skilled trade, but that requires showing that there's either 2 years of technical school or apprenticeship and whatnot. Which, fair enough. We could work on that, and I have some friends in Canada who are a part of an organization called Trucking as a Trade that are also trying to do something similar up north. But like, it's very interesting to me that you and your people are finding out about all of this stuff, and that they're actually postponing trying to build truck parking because they think these robot trucks are coming. So they don't try and solve a problem in the now because they think at some point in the future it'll be solved and they can save some money. But like, they're completely forgetting about how that is punishing the people right now, right? Like, there's no consideration here about the people that are having to like work around all of this and deal with all of this old infrastructure that's not set up for the amount of traffic we have right now. And they're buying into the sort of utopian sales pitch about this technology, which may or may not show up, which may or may not get held up for any particular reason. I just find all of this fascinating. Carry on, sir.
So to go to what you were saying, we're going to put a phrase in here, and I've heard this from politicians. Some things I can talk about, some things I can't. Other things I can drop names and I can't. But there's always casualties in war. All right. I'll use an example of the pipeline. Remember when Biden come out and he said they closed down the pipeline, and they were like, yeah, but you're putting, what was it, 1,500 people out of work. And he says, yeah, but we're going to create more jobs. Well, you haven't created them yet. We're putting, well, there's always casualties in war. And that's the same thing that's happening right now with what's going on with the parking and driverless. Is in their mind, it's just part of the system. There's always going to be somebody that's going to lose before we gain. There's always going to be that time in between transition that people are going to get hurt. Okay. And that sucks. I don't like it, but I've learned that's their mentality. And once you figure out their mentality, then you can figure out, that's where you go from 10,000 feet looking at something to 30,000 feet and look, so you can see where they're trying to get.
Right,
okay.
right. Good
So you can meet them.
strategy. Yeah.
So, and that was one of the things that we do in America Without Drivers. I kept telling the guys, I said, man, we got to go to 30,000 feet. If you're really going to be out here and you're going to take your time and your money and put it into advocacy, we know what's wrong. Just like you were saying about truckers like to complain and cry. We know what's wrong. We can even find a solution, but what we got to figure out is, where are they trying to go? Where are they trying to go? Why are they doing this? Where are they trying to get to? Because then you can get up there, you can either slow them down, or you might even be able to change the direction a little
right
bit.
So right? If I may, here's my take on that. And my I might not be at that 30,000 foot altitude. I can only relate to you what I've read. And
right.
So very recently, there was a really big news item in the world of autonomous vehicles that came out a couple weeks ago, and it was in Bloomberg News, and then there was another one, I think, in TechCrunch, about the fact that the autonomous vehicle pimps and manufacturers, so to speak, throughout the whole system. So like people like Ford that make cars, people like Uber who want to like build this model and make money off of it, are giving up on autonomous cars, right? They're shelving it because they can't get the technology to cooperate and be completely safe as corresponding with the promises that have been made. And they're also finding that there's not the market for it, right? Because most people that drive a car don't view it like some people view it as a utilitarian thing, like I need this to get from point A to point B. But in America, at least, a lot of people enjoy driving. It's an activity. There was a whole book written about it. Have you read Why We Drive Towards the Philosophy of the Open Road by Matthew Crawford?
No, but I've been told to read that I should read that.
Well,
So
I'm telling you again, and you should get
okay,
on that.
so
So, all right.
confirmation here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
On one of Crawford's points is that like there's something deeply human about navigating material reality, and one of the many ways in which we do that is through driving, and people really enjoy it. And the autonomous vehicle manufacturers and boosters are coming to find out that like they're not going to be able to get people to buy their products where it concerns the personal vehicle. Where it concerns the commercial vehicle, however, the economics change because with commercial vehicles, if you're a trucking company operator, 30 to 35% of your cost is paying the guy behind the wheel. So now there's an economic incentive to get rid of that 30 to 35% of cost, which is why, you have Waymo and Torque and all these people that are still trying to push autonomous trucks, even though Uber, Ford, all these other Tesla, everyone else that's involved with making autonomous cars, after blowing through over $100 billion, according to this article in Bloomberg, they're basically saying, forget it, it's not happening. But the trucks, they want the trucks because they want to get rid of us, me and you, right?
Yep. Yep. $80,000. They save 60 to $80,000 by taking us out, and even if they only put 20,000 into the profit mark out of that 80,000, you take a fleet of 2,500 trucks and you figure 20,000, 2,500 times. That's a lot of money, right?
It
So,
is.
yep. And then you figure all the companies across the United States. One of the things is trucking. They keep saying driver shortage,
Which is baloney.
which is baloney, right? It is. But you have to go back to, it's hard not, you have to talk about politics when you talk about autonomous, because politics is so deep in this, it's just sickening. Okay. Because autonomous is about politics. All right. And the politics of it is lobbying and money, right? Because that's what politics is, right? I mean, people have to understand the definition of what really the definition of politics is, right? So the tech giants, I don't hold nothing against them. I give them nothing but all due respect. Okay. As much as I would like to dislike them because they're building the monster, all they're trying to do is they're doing we love to drive a truck and they love to build stuff. And just like we want to see our trucks shined up or whatever you like to do in trucking, they like to see their stuff out here being
Sure.
manufactured and
Yeah.
built
Yeah.
and played too.
We're doing our
So,
thing and they're doing their thing, and that's
yep.
perfectly okay.
And that's so, right off Jump Street, as when I throw these techs underneath the bus, I'm not doing it on a personal level. I'm just using them, don't take it out of context.
Right.
So, but what's going on here is these tech giants have put it out here, and what they don't understand, and I watch these guys every day, and I mean Kodiak, Too Simple, all of them. And I can go and tell you a lot of things about Too Simple, Elaine Chow, the whole works, and you look it up and see it for yourself. But drivers, middle class jobs, most of your high school educated men in America, that's the number one job for high school educated men, is
It's the
truck
number
driving.
one job. So truck driver
Yes.
is the number one job for men in 29 states.
And then on top of it, it gives you purpose. There's a purpose. You're actually controlling a machine. You're delivering goods for people. You feel that you have a purpose. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Outside of a factory, you sit on a factory line and you just do the same thing over and over again. What, talk to any of them. They say, I ain't got no purpose. I feel like a
Yeah.
robot.
Yeah, no.
Right?
So to bring it to bring it back to the book I just recommended to you again over and above the other people who've told you. Crawford doesn't say as much specifically about truck drivers. Like his book is not about trucking. His book is about the physical act of driving, the control and and the what you get as a human being from manipulating the reality around you and navigating it, right? Like
Yep.
it's a deeply philosophical book,
Yeah.
and
I like it.
it
I need to read it.
yeah, and it applies here, right? Like you said, just like you said, when you're a truck driver, you have like there's some purpose to this. Like you understand that you're helping the economy. You understand that you're taking this thing from point A in physical reality to point B in physical reality. And the people at both ends, the people that shipped it, the people that received it, are making money and doing things with the materials that you brought them. And that understanding of your participation in this transaction provides you with some kind of satisfaction, right?
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
And what Crawford is saying in his book, although it's not technically about truck drivers, is that like in our navigation of reality in vehicles, the vehicle is a tool and it provides your soul, you as a human being, with that same interaction with reality and gives you um a similar feeling of like you're doing something whilst you're driving. And every time they introduce a new technology, be it like, making sure you don't travel across lanes or front of collision avoidance or an ELD or some other thing that takes even one part of your participation in this process away, it's making you less human, right?
Yep. Yep.
And in that process of removing these points of humanity from you in the various stages of operating a vehicle, it's actually having a deleterious effect, right?
Yep.
So like,
Let's change gears here. Let's go on the level of CDL, what you had said about those guys over there. And this is where I kind of planted a seed, so I'm glad to hear that he's doing something, because these two were brothers and neither one of them been in trucking. I think he had a son that was he's driver or something for UPS. That being said, I know a little bit more than what I let out to know. So um, let's back this up, and I'm going to bring Elaine Chow, which was Department of Transportation, the head of Department of Transportation.
and
Okay,
Mitch McConnell's wife.
I was going to go there. Okay, we'll go there towards. Let me and let's just, because we've only got an hour, so I just want to touch some spots here that maybe in your future shows and stuff that you can follow up, and you'll get some little nuggets out of this for other people to elaborate on. Okay, so that's
Right,
why I'll scatter around. So
right,
now you'll
go.
see what I'm. Okay, so Elaine Chow comes over here. First of all, let's see who Elaine Chow is. Who is Elaine Chow? Elaine Chow is the daughter of the biggest import export of shipping in China, out of Belgium. Okay, so who is China? We also know that China would not allow somebody to have that much power in their country unless they had control over them. All right, so now we're going to move on. That was just a nugget, something to plant a seed. Elaine Chow comes over here, goes to college. Her dad sends her over here. She goes to college. She gets on at the Department of Labor. That's where she first got her foot in the door in politics in our country, Department of Labor. She gets in there. What does she end up becoming? The head of Department of Labor. Somewhere in this little mix, what does she do? She marries Mitch McConnell, which is one of our big politicians, which is the head of the Republican Party, right? The House Speaker, whatever the heck he is, the head, whatever he is,
Yeah,
right? After this, what happens with Elaine Chow? Well, Elaine Chow then becomes the head of Department of Transportation. So the two things, labor and transportation, which is the heartbeat, literally, of America. This woman has been in both of them. All right.
right.
So now let's go. Now I'm going to throw something. You say, okay, America without drivers. Mr. Cook, why do you care about this? Well, Too Simple was the big player on the block. They were doing all this marketing and media, and then all of a sudden, one of our FMCSA guys end up over at Too Simple, and then also one of the head guys at UPS end up over at Too Simple. We go digging into Too Simple. Too Simple started out in Beijing, China.
Really?
And then they end up with an office in San Diego. Okay. So autonomous. Now I'm just going to leave that there, and you go back and listen to this, and whoever picks up on that can pick up with it and just go down any rabbit trail. But those are facts. What I just gave you is facts. Facts don't care about your feelings. The facts are the facts, right?
Correct.
And also, she was also taken out of that and was questioned about some of the ties to China. Okay. And Too Simple, look what just happened to Too Simple in the last 6 weeks to 8 weeks, couple months. Find out what happened to Too Simple.
Why don't you're gonna start... explain that to me and my listeners? Lay it out for us.
They ended up having special interest in there. And then Mahler, there was special deals that was going on. He was with the FMCSA, and he had to step down. The CEO had to step down too because of the China connections. It's all dirty. I don't even want to get into it because that's not my thing with America Without Drivers. My thing is to open people's eyes about these aren't as safe as far as them not texting and driving or being tired and this and that. Yes, they'd be safer than humans all day long. But you don't know anything about the holograms. You can take a hologram and put it in front of it, and this thing's going to on the sign, and it's going to go the wrong way because it's going to follow the hologram, not what it's meant to do. First of all, they'll say, well, this thing has been tracked. The LiDAR, the satellite, it can lose satellite connection, and this thing's already tracked for 3 miles up the road. So as long as the glitch gets fixed within 3 miles, it won't miss a beat. Well, what if something runs out in front of it during those 3 miles?
That's right.
What if something happens? Okay, these are the hard answers. We don't have all the answers. We just have some questions, some hard questions we need answers to. Okay.
Right. So
nobody wants to answer them.
No,
and nobody's answering the right questions. And if you follow these guys, you realize they step around this when they do all their PR stuff, right? They don't ever talk about these things. But if we give up, now Trump came out, and this ain't about Trump or Democrat or Republican. These are facts again. I'm just using the facts. Trump come out and said some of those towers when he was in office, he said he didn't like these towers because he felt that China had something on these towers where they were listening in to us and they were spying on us through these towers, right? Come out to be, it was true. Go look and see where Too Simple set up all their terminals around the country. All right. Just facts. You draw your own picture, but enough evidence right there just says, hey, this is dirty. Something's wrong here. Okay. If these guys, one of the things is why the mega carriers want this, the FedExes, all them guys, is because it's driver out, truck on demand. When the economy picks up, they can fire up them trucks. When the economy slows down, they shut the switch off. They ain't got to hire or fire, right? They have no human.
And the 30 to 35% cost reduction.
Yeah, and listen, and most of these mega carriers buy their trucks in bulk through fleet and get discounts, right? So most of these mega carriers, let's take Snyder or JB Hunt or any of them, right now, Warner, across the country, they could have, let's say, a fleet of 5,000 trucks. That's a low number. Let's say, though, I'm just using numbers. 1,000 of them, 5,000 are always sitting with no driver. All of a sudden, if we don't have to worry about a driver in them and they can just flip a switch, they can utilize them trucks anytime they want and just turn them off, right?
Right.
Okay. The other thing on that, we also know that the ATA, American Trucking Association, is built of some of the top carriers, top mega carriers in the United States.
And when we say top,
and worldwide.
And when we say top, we don't mean that they're good. They just mean they have a lot of trucks.
A lot of trucks, right?
And market share.
A lot of trucks and market share. That's exactly right. And they're worldwide. Most of these guys are worldwide, invested worldwide. So when we say that the government, when I speak government, I say, oh, well, we're giving the government too much control. Let's define that real quick. Who is our government? Outside of our military, the guy with the gun and his finger on the button, who is our military? Who is our government? It's the politicians. Well, who is the politicians? Who's controlling the politicians? It's the lobbyists. It's the big corps, right?
And the deep state.
Which
The,
is big corporations,
that's right.
right? Right. All these guys,
unelected bureaucrats with too
all
many
these
uncomfortable
politicians are,
connections. Yeah.
all these politicians are representatives of the big corporations, right? They represent the big corps. So by giving them the power of driver out and truck on demand, that phrase needs to be echoed a lot. Truck on demand, truck on demand, truck on demand. Just remember that, truck on demand.
Truck on demand.
Changes the whole game. These little small fleet guys think, oh, but look, no, you won't. These guys already got trucks set and just waiting to put this device on. You know what I'm saying? So they'll outnumber you quickly. So, anyways, you give them the power, and we've seen this during COVID. All of a sudden, they've got truck on demand. They don't need a driver, just over the road in itself. How much of our essentials are moved over the road?
All of
A
them?
lot. Most of your essentials are moved over the road, and that's where they're targeting. Oh, we're going after is over the road. If you give these mega carriers and these top ATA carriers driverless and give them total control over nothing but over the road, they've got control over the people. Period. Look what they did during COVID. Could you imagine your little town or my little town and our mayor or something say, we're not going to force mask mandates or vaccines in our little town? Well, we just ain't going to deliver to your town.
Right. Yeah. It becomes this corporatist nightmare.
Look what happened in Canada. You're from Canada.
Yeah. Oh,
Look
yeah.
what happened
No,
to those
dude.
trucks.
Dude.
Look how they shut off your money. Could you imagine? So,
oh, it wasn't just the money. No, dude, Will, you have to understand. So I know this lawyer who's working on the Public Order Emergency Commission right now, where they're investigating the application of the Emergencies Act. It's like this big inquiry. It's been going on forever, or a few weeks now. And Keith Wilson came out and said, and actually one of the witnesses at the POEC said it wasn't just, they didn't just lock down the bank accounts. They came after your investments. They came after your insurance. So there's this gentleman who was part of the organization of the Freedom Convoy in Canada. His name is Chris Barber, and he owns a small trucking company in Saskatchewan. And after they invoked the Emergencies Act and gave themselves the right to basically terminate your economic standing as a person, Barber was getting phone calls and texts from his drivers saying, our fuel cards don't work anymore. So, like, his drivers who are operating in Canada and the United States couldn't get fuel anymore. So it wasn't just that, like, the government came after Chris Barber as an individual who was protesting the government. They came after Chris Barber's business. They came after Chris Barber's employees. They came after Chris Barber's investments. They came after Chris Barber's insurance covering his trucks. They came after Chris Barber's relationship with fuel companies in order for his trucks to buy fuel. Like, it was a total shutdown of your ability to participate in the economy. So I'm glad you brought that up. Like, these mofos who, if you dissent against any of this, they are very slowly making a panopticon where your ability to participate in the economy is contingent on your compliance with their dictates. So they're basically trying to eliminate you as a citizen being able to say no. Like that. That's how bad it is.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's exactly what they're doing with the autonomous trucks right now. They're trying to take away the ability for us to say we're not going to do it. And the mega carriers, who they don't live in the reality that we do as the working class, not the CEOs and stuff. They're just not there. But anyways, if you look at it, and that's what America without drivers is, we're not against autonomous, driverless. It needs to find its place, and it needs to be put in its place. If there truly is just here's a good example. They were saying, and they told me this, I went and I went to Too Simple, drove right up on the lot like I own the place. I've talked to their government affairs and so forth. Okay, I'm pretty bold. I've got videos. I talked to the Waymo drivers. And anyways, they said in one of their PR promotional things that they're doing jobs that drivers don't want to do, and they're driving from Dallas to Houston on I-45. And they're running all these driverless trucks up and down there. Right now, there's a driver in there. He's getting paid good money, but their whole goal is that driver doesn't realize is they want him gone, and he's just teaching that truck. That's the other thing. These computers can't learn this without the driver.
That's
They
right.
learn from the driver. That should tell you something in itself, right
But
there.
they only learn so much, as we're coming to find
Right,
out.
right. So they want to say these are undesirable lanes. So there's that undesirable again, kind of like what Hillary threw at us. That was a political punt. Anyways, deplorables. You tell that driver that runs and gets home maybe one night a week and every weekend, making $60,000 to $80,000 a year, that's an undesirable lane,
Well,
and it's going to be better for
the
him to
whole
go
thing about the
go.
term undesirable is that like this is subjective, right? Like, yeah, some jobs suck. Some people don't want to do them, but some people do like their jobs, and some people have made the
Right,
calculation in their minds that like, yeah, this job might suck and might not be desirable to most other people, but it works for me. And using this technology under the cover of saying, well, a bunch of people don't want to do it. Well, maybe some people do want to do it. Maybe it does work for some people, right? Like, again, it comes back to this question of agency and subjectivity, which gets removed because cold, hard coding doesn't factor any of that in, right?
great example. Well, let's look at it. 80% of our goods that are moved right now in tractor trailer are done by fleets 20 trucks or less. Why? Why can't the mega carriers get drivers? Well, the only reason they do get them is because it's a starting point, and who wants to drive for them because they want to micromanage you,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
They
this
want to
comes
treat you
in.
like a kid unless they really need you.
That's right. This
These
comes
guys,
into the whole CDL mill thing, right?
yeah,
Like,
because of
what?
the regulations and stuff. That's just like speed limiters. They want to make it so hard. They want to make it so hard on these small fleets that drivers don't want to drive for them. It'd be just as much to go drive for the mega carriers. You get what I'm saying? And that's what they're. Oh, we want to even the playing field. It's dictatorship, is what it is. It's crazy.
Yeah, there's certainly, I mean, it feels like sometimes we're watching, these dystopian novels come to life. Like, are you familiar with the author Philip K. Dick? He wrote
No, I don't know.
what do androids dream of electric sheep, which became the Blade Runner movie, like back in the 1980s, Harrison Ford, and then they did like the sequel to it. um and then there's like there's a woman who writes in Canada named Margaret Atwood, and she recently became famous again because they did there was this Hulu TV series called The Handmaid's Tale, which was based on her book, which was written in the 1980s. But Atwood has written all kinds of stuff, and one of the series she wrote this series called the Mad Adam trilogy, which has been everything that Margaret Atwood predicted in the Mad Adam trilogy has been coming true for like the last 10-15 years since she wrote it. But nobody has done a TV show about it because it cuts too close to the bone. Because in the
Mm-hmm.
Mad Adam trilogy, we have corporations and the government working together. We have gated communities. We have a major fight between the urban and the rural, which is like kind of the American politics writ large, right? Like Republican people are typically out in the sticks and the Democrats are on the coasts. And then there's private security, right? So we have like Blackwater and we have all these contractors working in Iraq and all these places for the American military. And in Atwood's Mad Adam trilogy, there's an entire private slash corporate slash government security force that basically runs the show. So and then they have pharmaceutical companies who are creating like gene edited new species of animals. The guy who starts all of that is trying to create a new species of human. So like this ties into like everything that's been going on with the vaccine mandates, and there's been total radio silence in the media about this trilogy Atwood wrote. And if you read it, it's just like one after the another. You're just like, that's today. That's exactly what's happening. But because it cuts too close to the bone and exposes what we're living under, nobody wants to touch it. Even Atwood herself. Like if you go on her Twitter account, she sounds almost like a typical, you know, lefty progressive social justice warrior at times, even though those people also attack her for various things. But like, there's no discussion about this body of her work, which accurately predicted everything that we're living through right now. Right. And anybody that's listening to this, go out and read the Mad Adam trilogy, Oryx and Crake, Year of the Flood, and Mad Adam. Those 3 books, go read them right now. And there's a trucking connection in those books too. So in Mad Adam trilogy, one of the characters ends up in Alaska or something, and he ends up hitching a ride with a trucker in the Yukon after completing some mission to get back to the United States. Right. So there's this like weird trucker that maybe I'm only remembering that because that's who I am. But I heartily recommend that everybody read that book or that series of books.
I had a good friend of mine give me the book The Art of the War, and you ain't even got to read the whole book. If you go to Google and you look up Art of the War, it's going to give you topics of what it is, the indexes, and if you just read through the index of it, the table context, right? If you just read through those and you go back through this podcast that we're doing, this recording, and you check out Elaine Chow and what we're talking about with autonomous and how if they get a hold of transportation, they've got control of our freedom. We're losing freedom by going automation in transportation. Okay. Trust me when I say that there's a lot there, and we will lose freedom in automation if we
Well,
don't watch what we're doing.
the thing about the automation, and you make a really good point here, Will, is that like the automation of vehicles is a related extension of our fundamental right to travel, right? Like in the United States,
Yes.
you are allowed
Yep.
to go wherever you want. If you live in New Jersey and decide you want to get a job and somebody offers you a job in Montana, you can leave New Jersey and move to Montana, get a Montana driver's license and an address, and become a citizen of the state of Montana. And the feds have nothing to say about this. That's up to you and
Yep.
your potential new community in the new state you're living in. Same in Canada, same in like most Western countries. And if they cut off your ability to move around and they make it contingent either on autonomous vehicles which can be controlled by others, and or what we've just seen in Canada under the COVID regime. I get in a lot of trouble for this online. Okay, I'm going on a sidebar here, but it's related. The Canadian government under Justin Trudeau enforced um, basically a papers please regime on Canada. So, like, if you did not accept the Fauci juice into your life and take these vaccines, you could not get on an airplane. You could not get on a train. You could not get on a bus. The Canadian government, because of its like the federal government regulates interprovincial transportation, much like the FMCSA regulates interstate trade in the US. Um, they basically said no vax, no travel. So if you're living on the extremities of the Canadian geography, let's say you live in Labrador or on the Queen Charlotte Islands or up in the far north,
and you need to travel to Ontario, where most of the people live, to get medical care, you literally could not get on an airplane to travel. Or if you wanted to go travel and see friends, like it's all well and good to say, well, you could just get in your car and drive. Well, that's not an option for everybody, especially like if you're trying to go from, Canada has 6 time zones. The United States has 4. That's how much bigger we are, right? And like this guy Trudeau literally imposed a papers please regime on Canada. Now, again, I'm going to get personal here. My grandfather, James Ewart McGill, was a tank driver in the Canadian Army, went to Europe, helped clean out the Nazis from Europe, Belgium, Netherlands, France, Germany. And what were the Nazis famous for? Imposing health passes and papers, please. You couldn't go anywhere without showing the Nazis that you had approval to travel. What did Justin Trudeau just do to Canada? Like, and this ties in with the autonomous vehicles thing, right? Like, if a vehicle is autonomous, and let's say it's controlled by the government, or the government takes over Uber or something like this, like, well, just bear with me here as I spitball these ideas. And you have all of this technology that's controlled centrally, and you do not comport with whatever the government is saying right now your ability to travel is gone. Your fundamental right
Right.
as a human being to move about the planet is being restricted because you don't want to like take a vaccine you rightly may or may not need, right? Like, and autonomous vehicles tie into all this, right?
Yes, yes, they do. Yeah, 110%. That's they people don't understand how serious this really is,
Oh, super
and it's
serious.
yeah, it's not about safety. It's about control. That's all it is. It's all about control. And here's the thing: if we lived in a perfect world, it'd be great, but we don't. And we just seen this between the Trump and the Biden administration. No matter which side of the fence you're on, you see, do you really want either one of those? If you're a Trump hater, do you want Trump to have total control over all of our essentials? By No, you don't. You don't want that. Do you really want FedEx and UPS and them guys, whoever gets in the leadership, controlling all your essentials? No, you don't. You just don't. And it's just, once you give up transportation, when I come from a family of combat vets, almost all the males in my family on my side have served in the military. It's common sense. Even if you haven't served and you watch movies, the first thing you go after is transportation
Yeah.
to bleed out your enemy, right? Cut the supplies out and you got them. Well, why would we give our government? And you say, oh, we're not. We're giving it the ATA or the mega carriers and them guys control. They
But
are our government.
that's
That's what I
right.
was trying to say
They're
earlier. They
just
don't
are.
understand.
That's
They
right. They're
are
they're they're just arms of it. They're just extensions of it.
the politicians are their spokesperson, basically, of who they voted in to speak for them. That's it. Big Pharma, did we not show that Big Pharma has way more power than the government does right now?
Oh no, dude!
Didn't we
Like,
just see that through
they
COVID?
300. What was it I saw? I think it was $337 billion has been spent in the last year. Well, it was the last year they had statistics for. It was 2020 or 2021. The pharmaceutical industry is the largest lobbyist and campaign finance industry in the entire United States. They like people like to
Exactly.
complain, oh, well, it's the energy guys and big oil. Big oil is like 50 billion. Pharmaceuticals is like 330. They are over 6 times the size of the oil
Right.
companies. They are, in fact, the pharmaceutical industry spends more money on the fucking government, pardon my French, than the military industrial complex. Like, like everybody
Right.
forgot this. One of my things, like, I grew up around leftist type people. My wife is a progressive. I understand all of their critiques, and in some cases I agree with some of them. But like, in the last couple of years, they completely forgot about their principles where concerns corporations and big money being able to influence the state. Like the pharmaceutical industry basically got carte blanche to do whatever they want, and the left, air quotes, the left lied down and took it. And they're just like, oh, they're saving us. This is public health policy. It's okay. We don't need to be skeptical or to criticize what they're doing. Just take your shots. Just take them. You're doing the right thing. Like,
look who made record earnings during COVID. Who was it? It was your big corporations. They shut all the small corporations down, but yet they stayed in business and made record earnings. Okay. And then
largest
on top of it, who was pushing the vaccines?
It was the greatest. It was the greatest.
There you go.
It was the greatest upward transfer of wealth in human history from various classes beneath to various classes above. And pardon me, maybe I remembered this wrong, but I thought the left was against that kind of crap. Right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, me too. Right. No, you're right. You're right. Yep. So anywho, but America without drivers, like I said, I think the technology is really cool. If I could get in one of those trucks and go from here to California and just push a button and play on Facebook and social media and wear my flip flops and have fuzzy carpets and all that kind of stuff, man, I'd be game for it. And
Well,
still maintain the same lifestyle, and the
right
wage
now,
that I am.
I
But
want to
that's
ask
not
you a
where
question
it's
about
going.
that. My one of my critiques is maybe I'm a different mentality than you, Will, and by no means is this an insult, but like I want to know who the people are that would be willing to do that. To be so, let's bring this back a little bit. So you are aware of the Society of Automotive Engineers um, classifications for autonomy, right? There's like level 1 and level 5. Level 1 is basically a regular truck with no nonsense put in it, and level 5 is full autonomy. The computer is doing everything, right? And a lot of this testing and a lot of the stuff that's going on is with like level
Right.
2 and 3 trucks. And then the government imposes new regulations on level 4 because now it's getting like the safety factors are increasing. So my question is, and I wrote about this on one of my Substack articles, was like, who is going to willingly get in one of these trucks and sit there for all this time while the truck is doing most of the work, and then like still be cogent enough and not have been like passed out and fallen asleep or been bored out of their mind while an emergency situation takes place. This is the thing, like, right? It's all well and good to have a partially autonomous truck do most of the work. And if you are depending on a human to take over when a problem occurs or a situation occurs, snap of a finger out of nowhere, as you know, happens all the time out on the road. How do you get the people that are willing to do this, but then also remain cognizant enough to take over during an emergency? Like there's a disconnect here and I'm missing it. Maybe you can fill it in for me.
All right. Well, first let's go to the fact of let's look at the airline industry. Let's look at the rail industry and the ship industry. The shipping and trucking are the closest to the same right now, but even shipping has autonomous on it already. It's the same difference as the way they're looking at it when they're coming, and those are the ones that don't drive them. All right, those because they're the ones who make the rules, is the ones that have the least experience in whatever they're regulating. Anyways, a pilot, he takes the plane, gets it off in the air, and then it goes to autopilot. He's supposed to stay awake. He's supposed to be there in case something goes wrong. And they're going to look at it the same way in the truck. Okay, it's going to be the responsibility back onto the driver, but the driver won't be paid nowhere near the same because he's really not doing nothing. He may have an associate's degree in programming, the Tech One. Okay, one of the politicians, I sent out an email to 41 legislators in the state of Indiana about this, and one of them that came back is on an autonomous lane. Because I don't know if you know it or not, but in Indiana, they've done approved from Indianapolis to Columbus on I-70, an all autonomous lane there. Okay, it's already
Really?
approved and the whole works. So
Wow.
I got hold of one of the legislators, the senators on that lane in that area, and he said that the insurance companies would dictate, what goes on there. They're not going to insure something that's not safe. But he also gave a cat out of the bag. There's going to be a Tech One driver and a Tech Two driver. Okay, I'd have to forward you that email and let you see that email that I got back from him. But it tells a lot. If you read between the lines, it tells a lot that they're already talking about it, and they're just not talking it in public. In the public eye, it's behind closed doors is what's going on. Again,
Right.
money, because money, right?
So what's the
So
difference between a Tech
um,
1 and a Tech 2 driver? What does that mean?
I a Tech One, I believe, is just going to sit there and look at the dashboard and watch everything, and the Tech Two is probably going to actually have to have hands on to get it from point A to point B. I think that's what you're going to find out. The other thing that I'm going to let the cat out of the bag that you may not know is the largest trucking school in America is 360. 360 has partnered up with Ivy Techs all across the country. Why? Okay, let's go to 30,000 feet. Well, let's not just look at that they partnered up. This is another one of those things. Let's go to 30,000 feet. Where are they trying to go? Well, that's because your truck drivers are probably eventually, not now, but eventually they're also going to have some kind of programming degree. Okay, let's dummy this down a little bit. What is the pay scale for most people with nothing but a associate's degree? Where's their pay scale? Okay, we don't need to answer it, but just think about it. It's not very much, right? If you have
Right.
associate's degree in something, you're just middle class America, right? And
Or
probably
less.
towards the bottom of middle class
Yes.
America or
Correct.
less, right?
Yeah.
So there's where you're going. We're going hair samples in trucking. Okay, we're going driverless in trucking. The biggest school in America is partnering up with tech schools. So let's connect the dots. I mean, I'm not a very smart man, but I know what love is, right? So it's all the writings there, and that's what America Without Drivers does. What does America Without Drivers do? I'm constantly looking at autonomous. I'm not looking at parking. If I'm looking at parking, I'm looking at parking because how will that affect autonomous, or is it autonomous holding that back or doing it? What about AB5? What is AB5 doing? Every one of these I could yell, right? This is one of those things where it's like you raise your voice and wake the hell up, people.
Yeah.
AB5, speed limiters, parking, everything that we're doing right now is because of the future of driverless. These politicians and legislators and corporations know where we're trying to get to. Okay, and it's manufactured chaos. Back when Obama was in office, and this is factual too. Facts don't care about your feelings, right? Facts
Right.
don't care about your feelings. And you can look this up. Everything that I tell you is facts. When you hear me shut up and stutter, it's because it's like, I can't really give you the facts, or I'm not allowed to give this information. Because I talk to professors, like I said, I talk to government affairs at Too Simple. I know a lot that's been told to me off record. Okay, but because some of the people that's even in position see exactly what we're talking about and have compassion for humanity in the middle class. A lot of these people don't understand somewhere in their lineage of family, they have middle class too that's going to get affected by this, their own family members. And they're just too egotistic and prideful to understand that they're hurting their own family. But, anyways, so when you go forward and you look to see where these guys are going, autonomous is coming and you're not going to stop it. Not in transportation. Okay. Just like line haul, they say, okay, well, if you can do over the road, then you can do line haul. Let's look at an R&L driver or a Old Dominion driver or one of them guys. They go to Indianapolis, the hub, and all they do at night is they hook up a set of doubles or something, and they just take that day's freight and they move it to Columbus, Ohio. They get to Columbus, Ohio, they drop a trailer, they hook up a trailer going right back to Indianapolis. Talk about a driverless no-brainer job. Come on. You don't, if they can do over the road, they can do that. But we're not going to talk about that right now, Gordon. Why aren't we going to talk about that? Because we don't want to upset those dots right now. Because if we start upsetting them and letting them think their jobs are at risk and they start quitting, we're in big trouble.
That's right. So they're trying to make sure
you get
that
where
the
I'm going
gap.
here?
Yeah, no, they're trying to make sure that the gap between now and full autonomy is still covered. So they don't want people to quit. They don't want people to investigate other opportunities until it's too late, so to speak.
Now I'm going to tell you, now since we said that, now I'm going to tell you why these drivers associations don't like me. All right. They don't want me out here saying this. And I talked to the guy at NASTC, myself, and OIDA. They don't want their members to realize that autonomous is coming. Not that it's coming, it's already here, because there's over 500 autonomous vehicles on the road right now.
Well, so okay, so
right now. Because if we start saying this, go ahead. If we start saying this and the drivers find out and they start quitting, that hurts their membership, doesn't it?
Sure, it does. But like, let's be clear. I just want to make sure that like I'm technically and we are technically correct, because there's autonomous trucks are not like in the SAE thing. So like there's level 2, level 3, level 4. I think what we're dealing with now is a lot of semi-autonomous trucks, because if we actually had autonomous trucks, we'd all be unemployed already, right? Like I hate to be like a stickler
Wrong.
for definitions. Am I incorrect?
You're wrong. They don't have all the they don't have all the yeah, they don't have all the bugs out of it right now, but right now they are driving. When you see 2 men in a truck on an autonomous truck, that truck is fully autonomous. Okay?
But the regulations require that those guys be there though, right?
Well, they're working on Yes, and that's what they're working on now is regulations. And they're not going to let it be fully autonomous out here for the next couple of years. But you know just as well as I do that technology is improving very quickly, advancing so fast. In a year's time is just tremendous in technology. All it takes is just a little bit moment. There it is. That just makes it advance so much. You get what I'm saying? So
I do. But my counter to that, and is something that I've said online. I have this friend who's a mensch. He's just this interesting dude. He's a Newfie. Not that means anything. He's from Newfoundland. He studied philosophy and political science, and we spoke about this stuff quite a bit over the last few years. And he has a very good I don't want to call it a meme, but he has like one of these sort of compressed ways of saying things that sort of encapsulates what the problems with it are. And I'll just lay this out for you and my listeners, and people who know me have probably heard this already, but anyway, I'll lay it out to you. This is his quote: "Artificial intelligence is called artificial intelligence because it is fucking fake. It's right there in the name, and the fact that no one picks up on this proves the profound autism of the entire project." End quote. So what he's saying here is that, yeah, we have all of this AI and autonomous vehicle technology, but because it's fake and it doesn't actually have a human involved, at some level, it's never going to perform like we perform. Right? Do you agree with that or no?
Right.
And you don't have to agree. Like I'm not like offering some judgment on your take here, and I don't want to get in an argument with you. I'm just curious, like, what do you think about that statement?
I agree with you, with the exceptions of they know that too. And that the way they set this up, like with the parking and with the lanes, just like Indianapolis to Columbus, those are, if they separate that from the public, and those are just autonomous trucks over there going to and from with no human element in there, Now, if they crash, there's no grievance. Do you get what I'm saying? It's just a money thing. All right. So it's still going to affect. So the more that they dial that in, the more it's going to, the displacement, the ripple effects, even on that, will affect the working class, the jobs for working class America. So it's a long, so yes, I agree with you that never will. I don't believe, not in our lifetime, will it ever. I mean, just like every bouncing ball that comes out into the street, we know there's a child behind it, but that driverless vehicle won't.
They just
You
they
get what
just
I'm
see
saying?
they see an obstruction.
Right.
There's a man, there's this guy on Twitter. Oh my God, his name is Stain Haynes, and he contributed this segment to a podcast I listened to called Ghost Jail. And one of the things he identified in this little segment was that artificial intelligence, you can show an artificial intelligence 10 chairs, right? Here's a chair. Here's another chair. Here's another chair. And you can teach it what a chair is. But when it's presented something that's like not quite a chair, it doesn't have the like intellectual capability to understand what that not quite chair is, right? So like when you have this issue, let's say
Mm-hmm.
an autonomous vehicle is coming into a situation where there's like a school bus and a car and everyone's trying to avoid each other in this like imminent collision situation, and the autonomous technology is like scanning the whole field of interaction, and all it sees is obstructions. It sees a car, it sees a school bus, it sees a tree, it sees a fence. And to the autonomous technology, all of that stuff is just simply an obstruction. If you're a human, you can go in your mind as a human in a split second, you can say to yourself, do I drive my truck into a school bus full of kids, or do I drive it into a fence built out of 2x4s that's got no human content related to it, right? If I put my
Right.
vehicle in that fence that's built out of 2x4s, I have hurt and killed nobody. And the only thing I've damaged is the fence and the front of my vehicle. Autonomous technology or artificial intelligence sees equal obstructions across the spectrum of the situation it's being presented with, right?
Yep. Yep.
It does not have the experience or intellectual horsepower to make the decisions that you and I and just about every other truck driver, no matter how retarded they are, being sucked up from the dregs of society by the CDL mill system they may be, they still recognize that the school bus is full of kids, the other car in the situation has a person driving in it, and then we have a fence and a tree. We could go hit the fence and the tree and nobody gets hurt except equipment, right? And inanimate objects.
Right.
Autonomous technology, artificial intelligence cannot yet make that same decision. And
That's why they're doing over the road.
While it cannot make that same decision, any claims they have to being more safe than us are complete and utter BS. Right? Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
No, you're right on that. But that is exactly why, and they say it themselves just in a different way, that's why they're doing over the road, is because over the road has less things. Most everything stays the same on over the road.
Most, but not all.
Most. But see, there's casualties in war. And that's what they go back to again. Just like they did the ELDs on what? Saving 26 lives a year. They passed that, and even though they knew that was BS, but that was their excuse they put out here because money's behind it. I mean, we're sitting here rationally thinking this out, compassionately, humanity over prosperity. They don't think this way, so we have to think the way they're thinking, because the reality is they're going to get what they want. We're not going to get what we want.
So boiled down, what you're saying is,
So
that you and I, and any other trucker or somebody
yep,
who's like
we're
a
a
human
commodity. We're a
are
commodity.
we are talking about this in a humane way. And what you're
Yep.
saying is that the FMCSA is thinking about this in a utilitarian way. And like, if this thing saves 16 lives versus 15 lives, that plus one overrules any other consideration.
High
Right?
five. Yep.
Because
Yep.
that's the utilitarian mindset.
Yep. Yep. And
Even
what we have to do is we have to start figuring out. We have to go to 30,000 feet, and we gotta look and see this from their perspective and find out how to fight them, or maybe that's the wrong word. There could be a better word. I'm not a professor or nothing like that in mind screen, but we have to figure out a way to reach them and go up on stage with them in a debate to debate them on their level, because that's what they're going to come out. Their whole thing, just like driver shortage, driver shortage, driver shortage. Why I brought up Elaine Chao is because she was the head of Department of Labor. Okay, one of the professors that I talked to, his whole profession, what he teaches is how to take what we're saying, turn it to represent it to the public to favor the government's agenda. Does that make sense?
yes.
So, and we have a acquaintance that we both know that how we came together that was actually under this professor. Okay, so
yeah,
we have some insight. I know that's what we have to do. These conversations that we have, some of these is how do we debate this on their level to expose exactly what you just said, because that's what needs to be exposed. Is these guys are coming out here, they don't care about us having a good job and being able to go buy a bass boat if that's what you want to do, or if you're into race cars, being able to go drive buy a stock car for your kid, or midgets, whatever your little hobby, whatever your fix is. Okay, they don't care about none of that stuff. All they care, but we're making sure you have food, we're making sure you have an allotment for a home and for food, and you get what I'm saying. And
yeah,
that's
I
what we're
know
up
what
against
they're
right now.
doing. So there used to be this guy I knew.
Could you imagine, real quick? Wait. Could you imagine the safety? This is what gets me. Could you imagine the amount of safety and awareness that we could have right now if these clowns would take as much time and money and effort to put into getting drivers to be owner operators and small business owners, instead of just a commodity sitting behind a steering wheel? If they would took that much time and effort into us and building people than what they're trying to do to get us out of there.
Yeah, well,
but they don't make no money off that.
No, that's right. That's a very good point. And oh man, this is part of the reason I'm trying to start this podcast and talk to people like you, is like, truckers, for good or for ill, on the bleeding edge of all of the surveillance technology, which is making our lives difficult, and at the same time are the guinea pigs for being replaced by autonomous technology. So like, we're in this like crazy milieu where we have all this crap coming at us in a very short time. And like, it's hard to be in here. And I'm very, very happy that like you've managed to keep your head above water and pay all attention to this stuff, Will, because a lot of us are just like, there's something about like the mentality of the trucking business, which is conservative. And I don't mean in like the political sense of what conservative means, but I mean like um inertia, not willing to change, just keep going as best as we can, and keep, in a Christian terminology, shouldering our cross, doing what we need to do, which in and of itself isn't a bad thing. But like, when powers that be are taking advantage of our willingness to do that, and truckers, one of the reasons I started this show is I want to talk to all the people I've met in the trucking business who are amazing, who are really good guys, who shoulder their burden, work their asses off to provide for their families, and do the thing. And some of us are paying attention, and you clearly are paying way more attention than everybody else. And like, because you have done this, you have this insight into what's happening to us. Whereas other people, because they're so busy shouldering that burden, doing the Christian thing, this is my burden. I am going to work towards the objective of paying for my family, raising my children, and this is how I do it by driving. Whatever you want to think about the job, they're doing the good thing, but they're being taken advantage of in doing that good thing. And here you are observing what's going on, right?
Trying to bring other people awake to what's that's the whole
No,
point. It's like
no, I appreciate that
even our
greatly.
politicians, even our state representatives, a lot of them don't even know if they're not in on the transportation committee. Here, let's go politics on that side for a few. I have found out that if these politicians, if your state representative, district rep, and so forth, if they aren't on the transportation or labor side, they don't have a clue.
Oh, they have no idea.
They
So,
have no, yeah.
a few years ago, Thomas Massey, who's a Republican congressman from Kentucky, saw what I was saying on Twitter about the ELD mandate, and he was on a committee. And this goes to show you how ridiculous the government operates. The FMCSA brings the ELD mandate, and then a whole bunch of people say, "Well, has all these intended or unintended consequences that are affecting the economy, the trucking business." So then the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, the year after the implementation of the ELD mandate, launches a bill to study the effects of that and see what's going on. So Thomas Massey, who's on this committee, and for whatever reason, praise be the Lord, was following me on Twitter. He's like, "Hey, you're a trucker and you seem to know what you're talking about. Write me a letter about what the effects of this are, and I'll present it to the committee." So I write this letter. I send it to Thomas Massey. Unfortunately, this is in 2018, right before midterms, and the committee died. It's politics. 2018 midterms come along. Everyone's busy with who's getting reelected. It never happened. However, there are these people, few as they are, within the state that are paying attention to this stuff. And I guess it behooves us to figure out who they are, because insofar as like the government works in concert with these corporations and big tech people that we've been criticizing here, there are a very small minority of people within the state who retain the required skepticism that we have to say, "Hey, hold on a minute, what's going to happen here?" They are very small in number, but they're in there.
Yep. Yep. And that's because I've learned that in their community, their people put them in office for certain things that's happening in their community. And that's where they keep their focus at, and then they just kind of the same thing that a lot of these drivers do. Well, it's not in my face. It's not affecting me now. That's none of mine. I'm just moving on. That's not in my lifetime, blah, 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 and people just don't understand that we have a chance. The regulations are just coming down. This in 2023, there's going to be regulations for this autonomous, but they've been out here running this now for 2 years. This whole last year, we pushed it into the public by being on Twitter and making these people, because every news outlet, every time a news thing come on or White House come on, I had about a group of 5 people that would go on and blast tweets. America without drivers. The FMCSA is part of the swamp. What are we going to do with driverless? Middle class America, autonomous affects middle class American jobs. Blah blah blah. So they had no other way but to pay attention to what was coming. Yet this has been around now, though, hard and heavy for the last 5 years. You get what I'm saying? So we have a chance. People wake up and get ahead of this. We're not going to stop it, and we don't really need to stop it. I know that we may not want to talk about that right now, but we really don't need to stop it. What they need to do is get it regulated and get it under control, because this could help all humanity, but the way it's going right now, it's just going to help the upper elite. Do you get what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
That's just like making the delivery, this at-home delivery thing. People don't understand that just because everybody wants their stuff delivered to their house now and don't want to go to Walmart, that is no reason to start putting people out of work so that you would have the convenience of not having to go to the store.
Right. And I think what you're highlighting here and what you're observing is the desire of, or the vision of some of these, like, for lack of a better phrase, tech utopians who are like leapfrogging over what people actually want. Like, a lot of people desire human
Yep.
interaction. They want to go out and they want to do stuff. And there's been this trend since the internet has become popular in the last 30 years of, like, technological intermediation between what were once previously social interactions. And they've forgotten the humanity. They've forgotten that, like, people derive value and derive community and derive all kinds of other stuff that's, like, not easily quantifiable from these human interactions, right? And there's a value to that, but
That's right.
because that value is not represented by, like, dollars and cents and on a spreadsheet somewhere, they just ignore it. But you can't ignore it, because without people, what are your numbers? I mean, they're already
Right.
an abstraction. They become more of an abstraction the more you haul people away from them, and the more you restrict the choices people have to have those human interactions.
Right.
Right?
If you go to America Without Drivers website, americawithoutdrivers.com, and go to the debate, you will see Tucker Carlson and Ben Shabaro, and they talk about this in depth in an interview there. And it explains exactly why we don't need autonomous out here full force, and why we need to get ahead of this and kind of put the brakes on it and make sure we know what we're doing with it before we do it, before we let it loose. You don't want to let out a den of lions out into a public community, and that's what we're kind of doing here. Because
Right. Yeah.
people that are letting the lions out, they ain't the ones that raised the lions or did any of that. They're just looking at ain't these cute animals? No, let them set them free.
Yeah, well, again, like I say, they're looking at things often enough in purely economic terms, and you can't forget the human
Yep.
element, right? Like, this is one of my
Yep.
big projects in whatever advocacy and writing I do, even if I don't state it explicitly. It's that you can't forget the human element, and in forgetting the human element and reducing everything to dollars and cents, and there was this fella who was I got to meet through a podcast. I heard about him anyway. He came up with this great term called human resources slurry. And there's people that just view labor and people that do jobs as like an admixture of whatever skill they need that can just be slopped over here and there and everywhere, with no consideration about whether or not that person has their needs met by this slurry slop operation, just sending them wherever you feel that you might need them. But what about their needs? What about their
Right.
community's needs? What about, their desires for their children? You cannot remove the human element from this. All right.
No.
Like,
Just
you could.
because we can't, doesn't mean we should.
Exactly. And I think on that, we should
Yep.
leave it. We've been speaking for quite a while. I really appreciate your time, Will. And if my listeners want to come find you anywhere, where can they find you?
America Without Drivers. That's it. .com. AmericaWithoutDrivers.com. And again, real quick, let me put this in there because we don't make no money off of this. We're not gaining anything. All we're doing is bringing awareness. Okay. So go to AmericaWithoutDrivers.com. And if you don't do anything else on that website, the one thing you need to do is go watch the debate. and it'll be titled, you scroll down there, you'll see it. Okay, the debate, AmericaWithoutDrivers.com, the debate, and it'll really sum up the whole reason why I did America Without Drivers and what I'm out trying to do.
Right. No, and I appreciate your time and this great conversation. And I mean, we're facing this really interesting time where, again, forces maybe not exactly beyond our control, but like more or less beyond our control are trying to replace us and interfere with the human experience. And I understand you're a pretty a observant Christian and a man of faith, and I'm the Lord didn't bring any of us here to have us be taken over by our creations, right? He's the creator,
That's right.
not us.
That's amen. That's right.
And
that's right. That's what we're supposed to be here. We're here to fellowship too. We're supposed to fellowship. We're not. That's where the pandemic and COVID was just wrong on so many levels, where they tried to get you to stay in your home and shut the churches down and stuff like that. When something like that, we needed each other more than any other time, and they divided us. They learned a lot.
They sought to spread us even further apart and used fear to cause a lot of division. Man, I got to tell you, I've gone through a lot of that. One of the reasons I've sort of become partially popular on the internet because I wrote a bunch of things in defense of the Freedom Convoy in Canada, and that got me in a lot of trouble with people that have known him for a long time. And
you're doing something right. If you're getting in trouble and you start getting some haters, you must be on the right path. So
yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Well, and maybe we can talk about that again some other time. But I thank you so much for coming. Again, I just started this podcast because I think there's this like intersection between autonomous trucks and regulation and the driver shortage myth and the discussion about supply chains, especially in the wake of COVID. And like, I don't think enough people are speaking with or discussing this in a manner that takes into account the human element. And your project of America Without Drivers is centered on that human element. And I'm really glad you came to speak with me tonight. I really appreciate it.
You having me on.
Yeah, no.
Well, last thing, I don't think personally, I don't think that we have anything to worry about. Like, it's not an emergency red alarm going off in the next 2 to 3 years. But I do believe the next 5 to 10 years will be too late, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's the end of the world right now, but I'm saying if we don't start waking up to it and that's the whole point, is get more and more people talking about. The more we talk about it and the more people are aware of it, the more that we can help regulate and put it in its place where it needs to be.
All right. Wow. Thank you.
Have a good night, brother.
Yeah. No, wise words, and thank you for coming out. And I'll send folks to AmericaWithoutDrivers.com. And again, thank you so much for coming out tonight, Will.
Thanks for having me, brother. Have a good night.
You too.